Nah, it's actually really sick. Hey everybody, it's Killjoy and General Mills from Two Six Pack, and welcome to another episode of the Do's and Don'ts of Airsoft. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about communication. It's a follow-up from our communication series, part two, radios. Probably one of the main things that we wanted to go over with this is the different kinds of radios that you can choose from, different kinds of budgets that you're looking for, and kind of comparing the upper echelon to the lower echelon, how to use the difference between frequencies and radios, and obviously what to do and not to do, or what the do's and don'ts of radios. So, General Mills, since every single piece of radio equipment here is yours, let's start with you.
All right, should we start with the top of the line, or should we start with?
Oh no, you always gotta say the best for last.
All right, so I mean these aren't bad, but these are Midland GXT 760 radio. I believe they have 40 channels. They have sub-channels, so in all you have hundreds of channels. Although when it comes to airsoft, you should be only using your main frequencies, so you have 40. Also has weather channels and stuff like that. So it's great for other purposes besides just airsoft. You can use it for hiking. You can use it, for anything outdoors. You can use that for. And you know what? This isn't a bad radio. It's $100. You get two of them. 36-mile range. Although 36-mile range is not necessarily what they mean by 36 miles. It's usually over a flat surface with no obstructions in the way. But like at a field where you have obstructions, you still get a better distance compared to radios that have maybe like a 2-mile range. You might not be able to talk across the field. So something like this, you'll definitely be able to talk to everybody. So this is a good radio. It comes with 2 mics as well. Now this is my least favorite thing out of all the communication, is this push-to-talk system. And this does plug into this radio, and it's a push-to-talk. So you click it, and the end piece actually like plugs into your radio or your headset, and the other end goes into your radio, and you push the button to talk, and that allows you to transmit. And then you don't need to do anything for to listen. It will automatically just come through. But the problem with the airsoft ones is that they're really cheap. They really don't work too well. I think this thing lasted like maybe 2-3 airsoft games, and now the button doesn't work anymore. Like it won't allow you to transmit whatsoever. So this isn't that good. They're like $20, $30, but it's not worth it. And then what Mike has on his head right now is a Z Tactical Type E headset, and it's roughly about $70, and it's a replica of the real MSA Sordens. And you know what? They're not bad. The sound quality is a little bit lower quality than the real ones, but you know what? They work. Like I really can't complain about them. He's wearing them right now, and actually they're not that bad. So if you're on a budget for $80, you can get those, and it's a good headset. But now we're gonna switch gears, and we're gonna go into the more expensive. And let's start with the radio. And this radio is a Quangcheng TGU V2. It's a frequency-based radio, although right now it actually has the channels. It says channel 1, channel 15. It has a dual watch system that you can actually program this radio to listen to 2 frequencies at once. It's an $80 radio, which you may not think that's that bad since this thing is $100, but now remember, you're getting 2 radios for $100. You're getting 1 radio for, I think it's $84. This also, I mean, you can manually program it, but also there's a way that you can program it with your computer, which the guys at IMS, Military Surplus and Tactical Supply, Airsoft Tactical Supply.
Mm-hmm. In my sights.
It's in Warren. We'll actually leave a link for their Facebook page if you guys want to check them out. They set me up with all this stuff. They recommended that I get this radio. the headset that I'm wearing, and also now we're going to go into the push-to-talk. This push-to-talk is an amped push-to-talk. It's got a shorter wire, but the thing is, this is a real steel push-to-talk. So if you were to click this and then click the airsoft one, you'll actually notice a difference. See, I'm going to click the airsoft one, and now I'm going to click the real one. It actually makes a much more satisfying clicking sound, and also this is warranted. It won't malfunction or break, and if it does, they'll fix it. The wire, however, sometimes comes separated. Sometimes you can break it depending on what you're doing, and the wire is made in China, so that can't be warranted, but it's like a $10 fix, so it's not that bad. And lastly, what I'm wearing on my head is a MSA Sorden headset. It's basically the top of the line, I guess you could say. It's the real deal. Real operators out there across overseas are wearing these. And the difference between my headset and his headset is a lot of money. It's 70. This thing is like 325, but that came with the push-to-talk. So it's a great headset, though. I could pick up sounds that maybe he can't hear as well. Yeah, I can hear him scratching his hand right now with these. Also, this headset lasts a lot longer. They both run on the same batteries. This thing lasts 400 to 600 hours, depending on the level of intensity you have these on, also depending on what batteries you have in these. And his lasts about 6 hours. So, I mean, 400 to 600 hours versus 6 hours. You're going to be spending a lot of money on batteries when it comes to that, and you're going to be having to change your batteries out of your headset almost every time you go to the field. Whereas this, I mean, I could just keep them in there. That's pretty much about it. That's all I have to say.
All right, cool. Guys, we're going to switch over to some gameplay footage of us actually showing you radios and how they're used, and a game that we actually used them at where we all had a good time, and we're going to go over some of the differences and some of the do's and don'ts that you want to do when choosing your radio. So, all right, guys, so some of the main things that I really wanted to talk about when doing your do's and don'ts for communication, especially for radios, is frequencies. This really isn't necessarily a don't or a do, but it's more of an awareness. When you are getting a radio, make sure that you're aware of where you're going to be using your radio. What location are you going to be using at? What the field is like? What are the majority of the radios used on the field? Because to be honest, there are some guys that show up in frequency-based radios and they don't know anything about connecting with the majority of the airsofters that at least we played with at Zulu 24, where they all run channel-based radios. And if you are going to go to an airsoft field and you do want to try organizing some kind of team effort with communication, make sure you're aware that if you're going to use the channel-based radio format, if there's sub-channels, make sure everybody is turned on to their sub-channels on channel 0. Because there's a lot of radios, including this Midland, where like you'll have channels 1 through 10, and then each individual channel will have its own sub-channels. If those sub-channels aren't turned to 0, they're not going to be able to pick you guys up on the same channel. So everybody might be on 11, but they could be on 11.1, 11.0, 11.5, and you're going to have differences in trying to communicate. So make sure that your sub-channels are on 0. This way the guys that don't have sub-channels that are on the same channel as you can pick up the same frequency. That's probably one of the main things I want to talk about regarding frequency. Just be aware, like I said, if frequencies are what is used at your field, use it, but make sure you do your research and your information and knowing how to actually operate the frequencies on the radios, because his Quang Chang is a lot more complicated than this Midland. So trying to get the necessary frequencies needed to communicate with each other, if you don't know that, and there are other people on the field that can't help you with it, you're going to be kind of stuck in a situation that's not going to be very helpful. So, what's it called? Like that one guy that we played with. There's a guy that came on the field. He knew nothing about the radio channel that we were on, and Rick was on. Rick knew exactly what it was. So again, we'll send you the link for In My Sights, so you guys can ask any of your radio-based questions that there, and also on our own Facebook, which we uploaded. Rick has kindly donated his time and energy into writing a list for all the frequencies and what channels they equal out to. So if you look on the Facebook link and you see the picture there and you see a bunch of frequencies next to channels and you're using a channel radio, don't worry about that. It's more in tune for the guys that have frequency-based radios, and this way they know what channel, what frequency to tune into, so they can be on the right channel as the same as the team, right?
Yes.
That's good. Another thing, guys, for don'ts is make sure that you are aware of what kind of radio that you're getting, and try to be aware of the fact that depending on where you're playing is going to depend on how your radio is going to interfere with either objects that are around you or just being able to communicate with other people on the field. If you have a radio, for example, that is more of an outdoorsy type, like one that you pick up at Bass Pro Shop or something like that, that's going to be more inclined than if you have other radios that have, like, mileage that's out to certain ranges, and you find out that when you use it, it only works effectively up to certain points because of hills and valleys and all that kind of stuff where you're going to be playing. So be mindful of where you're going to be playing. Ask the guys at the field that you're going to be playing at what kind of radios they use, how effective are they, so on and so forth. Do your research. Always do your research. Remember, we're not here to give you sell points. We're just here to point out different kinds of radio communication equipment that Rick has, so to give you guys kind of an idea of like what we had to go through and what he had to go through as far as picking up different kinds of radios, because a lot of the other guys have different radios as well. Trying to think, is there anything that we should recommend for them not to do?
Well, if you're gonna buy a headset, when it comes to the headset, I bought that Z Tactical headset that you just saw before, that Mike was wearing. That's a cheaper headset. It's about $70. Now, that's good if you're an airsoft player, but if you're gonna like actually go to the range, use real steel firearms, buy something that is real steel, which that's what the Swordens are. Like, they will actually suppress the gunfire, whereas the Z Tactical might not do such a great job at it because it's not built for that. It's built to be a replica. So if you're actually out on the field and you're playing airsoft, maybe the Z Tactical is more for you, especially if you're on a budget. But if you're actually going to go to the field but then use that headset for real steel shooting, buy the Swordens. And I mean, it will do you the most good in the end. Also, when it comes to radios, if you have the option, buy waterproof radios. Expect it to get wet, expect it to get ruined, because when you're out in the field, you don't think it's going to happen to you, and you accidentally dive into a puddle or something, goodbye. That radio is gone.
Yeah. And another good point, that's actually another good point to bring up, is regarding anything, guys, if you have the option of getting the real steel version, get the real steel version. Like, if you're entry into airsoft and you want to get a lot of the replica stuff, that's cool. But I can't stress how much, like, especially if you want to eventually go from airsoft to milsim or whatever it is that you're going to use it for real steel in case people become police officers and stuff like that. If you're only kind of focusing on airsoft, that's one thing. But again, a lot of people that get into airsoft think that's what they're going to do, and then they end up branching out to other things. So, like, for example, I know a lot of guys that go to milsim and they bring a lot of their airsoft replica stuff, and not all of it. There's a large amount of it that is worth it. But at the same exact time, you could usually get a real thing for cheaper. And if I'm going to go out and play at an event where it's going to have broken glass and shattered ruins all over the place, I'm going to have to hop from window to window. I'd rather get those gloves that are going to make sure that they're ripstop and they're not going to cut through my hands and I'm going to be bleeding out, than opposed to the replica ones that I'm going to put on and I'm going to have to go to the emergency room as far as clothes and stuff is concerned, like that. And you want waterproof clothes and everything. So, like I said, if you can choose real steel, choose real steel. That's one of the do's that I will always recommend for communication and anything. Especially when you get to the higher end replica stuff, you're gonna find stuff that's real steel anyway. That's gonna be around the same cost. So you might as well get the real stuff.
Yeah, like, I know some guys in the field that have the replica headsets, and they're like $200 replica headsets.
Yeah.
But yet, the Swordens are $325, and you get the real steel push to talk.
Yeah.
So I mean, in the end, it pretty much balances itself out. Buy the real steel.
Yeah. Especially because it'll break more. And, like, for example, the push to talk, that might be $20, but if he's only going through 2 or 3 games and the thing is breaking. And again, this is just an example. There's probably people out there that say they have good ones, but I know General Mills have seen a lot of reviews where people say that there aren't. And you're going to be spending a lot of money on push-to-talks as opposed to just buying the legit one. That's why we really recommend the guys from In My Sights, because it's warranted, it works, it's an easy fix, and it's cheap to repair. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. So it's just such a huge benefit. But again, I digress. The point is that just make sure that when you're getting your equipment, if you can get something that's real steel, go for it. Especially with communication equipment. I can't stress with the communication equipment, because we recently played a game where we actually had very successful teamwork with about 40, 50 guys, and we were all using radios, and we were able to really get the job done. And it was a lot. Everybody had a much more enjoyable experience because of it. Everybody was able to work together and kind of do what they had to do to get the mission done. And at the end of the day, General Miller was just having a ton of people patting him on the back saying thanks for the job, because he was the one that was orchestrating it. And it's a huge thing when you could have guys successfully kind of communicating with on the field, whether they know each other or not. And people usually have a more enjoyable experience, as opposed to constantly screaming at each other and yelling at each other. Just being able to pick up the radio and go, hey, what's going on? And people being able to respond. It definitely can sometimes either make or break your day. It definitely made our day that time.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Especially, like we had the whole field that day. Like it was an all open field, and I mean this field's huge, over 136 plus acres.
Yeah.
And for us to be at one point like across the field, and I was able to communicate with my teammates that were all the way on the other side of the field and know exactly what they're going through, it made us like totally change our game, because otherwise it would be like we would have just kept going with what we were doing. But
Yeah.
the fact that we knew what they were doing, what points they captured, it allowed us to save the time of running over there to make sure that they did it.
Yeah.
And you know what? If it's a time save, that's what really won the game. We collected all the tags before the other team.
Yeah. That was pretty much it. Like, we thought we lost it, and then we realized that they didn't collect all the tags that they were supposed to collect. And because we had so many guys that were all on, able to work, like, we got it, we're heading towards you, we got it, we're heading towards you, it really, it changed it, And again, it's not about winning or losing, it's about having actual, like, a fun time, and the radios definitely made it a much more fun and enjoyable experience. It's kind of cool when you're screaming in a radio, telling people we got to push to the UN, and you immediately hear throughout the entire field, we're going to the UN! Like,
or you just see like this massive crowd. It was like it was like a full out just
Sprint.
swarm of people running towards the UN. It was pretty cool that you could just say that, and then all of a sudden you see everybody move.
Yeah, it was definitely a really, really fun time.
It
So
was-
those are definitely like don'ts, guys, that I want to recommend. Is like, don't get the replica if you can get the real steel. Don't get channel-based radios if frequency-based radios are what's common at your airsoft field. Don't get radios if you're not going to know whether or not they're going to work in the environment that you're playing on. Okay, those are things that I definitely want to recommend. And for the love of God, don't get the airsoft push-to-talks.
no matter what company they're from, don't get any of the airsoft push to talks.
Don't. You might as well get the throat mics at that point. So pretty much how it's going to be set up anyway is the other thing that we wanted to talk about is some of the do's. So make sure you do your research. Always do your research. Don't ever stop doing your research. Find out different people, see what different experiences are. Don't ever just listen to us. Try to get as much experience as possible, especially when it comes to radios. That's why we're trying to give you guys the list from In My Sights and the list of the channels of the radio frequencies and stuff. Those guys know what they're talking about, and we want to give you as good of a source as possible to when it comes to indicating what it is that you want to do. And make sure if you are going to get radios or communication equipment, get the ones that are weatherproof. Please get the ones that are weatherproof. You don't want to get the ones that are going to be bad or anything like that. It could be a problem. It could definitely be an issue because, like General Mills said, you can fall in a puddle and all of a sudden water gets on the wire and you're done. And so, anything else that you would recommend for people to do?
No, that's it.
That'd probably be it, guys. So, like always, drop your mags, clear your barrels, and we'll see you next time on the field.